Hello, my friends. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your motivational high five on transitions. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of your motivational high five. You're going to be hearing from a friend, someone who is part of the new Your Motivational High Five team who will be contributing regularly. Her name is Candace Olusola. Candace has contributed in the past, actually. And it's funny, this episode is on transitions, and her last episode was on transitions. If you look back, it wasn't that long ago, episodically. However, because we went on a big hiatus, it was 2 years ago. But I love her take this time around as well. And it's only fitting as we transition into a new season of the podcast. The podcast is naturally going through a change, is going through kind of a renewal. We've never had seasons per se for this podcast, but we are in a new season, metaphorically speaking, of this podcast. So it's gone through a bit of a change. But the heart is the same, and really the structure is not much different. We're just including more voices, and Candace is one of them. I want to tell you a little bit about Candace. You might need a refresher, you might not. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. And BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist in under 24 hours. Which is pretty amazing. Using our special podcast link, you can get 10% off your first month and join over 500,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Again, that link, BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/YMH5. Use the number 5. There's 4 characters there, YMH5. And you can get 10% off your first month. I highly recommend individual counseling. It was one of the best decisions of my life. Sometimes you just need professional people who know the right questions to ask that help you dig deep into your life and get to the answers. The wonderful thing is, in my experience, and I think it's true for BetterHelp, is that with good, experienced professional therapists, there is no condemnation. It's just someone who wants to help you find your best self. Someone who has probably experienced it themselves. You'll find these counselors also go to counseling because they hear other people's stories, and how could that not hit you in a way? But they understand their need for it, and they do this for a living. What if we understood that too? Check it out, betterhelp.com/YMH5. Use the number 5. Candace is a certified life coach, bringing a holistic approach to personal and professional growth. Her coaching empowers people to navigate life's challenges, discover their true potential, and cultivate a sense of purpose. She has spoken for schools, universities, radio, TV, and conferences across North America, South America, and the Caribbean. She has her own podcast with over 100 episodes called the First Paso Podcast. Paso means step in Spanish. All of her socials are at Candace Olusola. Check out the show notes. And she's got a YouTube channel, The Sweet Life with Candace Olusola. Okay, let's get into it. Here's Candace.
I wanted to talk with you guys about the season that I'm in. The last time that I was on this show a couple of years ago, I talked about being in a season of transition. And sure enough, I find myself in another one. And this one feels a lot different. The reason why it feels different is because it is something that I really never, ever, ever wanted to do. But I knew that I needed to do it. And so I was told to leave where I currently live and move all the way across country to a new place. In doing so, I wasn't sure why I was leaving my old Kentucky home. However, when I made it out west, I knew I had made the right decision. The thing about transitions, life is so full of transitions. It's really difficult to get through life without having to go through seasons of transition. Even just our natural transitions from childhood to adolescence to adulthood, becoming elderly, and all the things in between that can happen from kindergarten to middle school to high school and college or grad school, and getting our first job, discovering our career, having our big break, maybe getting married or having a long-term relationship, having kids, buying our first car, getting our first home. There are a lot of things that we transition into as life progresses, and yet some transitions really do catch us by surprise. I don't know where you are in your season. I don't know where you are in your life trajectory, but as someone who is currently in a season of transition that took me by surprise, I did want to encourage you today. I wanted to encourage you to embrace the unknown spaces. I wanted to encourage you to lean into the discomfort of what you have in front of you being enough to make those transitions in life. Sometimes we want all the details, and if we're honest, sometimes having all the details only makes us more nervous than we thought they would. We usually think that having more details gives us peace. And maybe what we know is probably the best amount of information we need before we make that big step. And it may feel big for you and might look small to others, or it might be small to you and look big from the outside. But regardless, it's your step to take. It's your decision to make that transition if you truly believe that's what you should be doing. And maybe you do have a little bit of hesitancy because you're not sure, but not being sure doesn't necessarily mean not to take that step, to not transition. Sometimes it takes courage to allow your fear to sit in the same space of that step, marinating in the discomfort of making a move that you never pictured yourself making. With all of that being said, I want you to close your eyes. Unless you're driving, don't close your eyes, but take a deep breath. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out, and repeat after me and use your own name. Say, Candace, transition can be challenging, but it can often be worth it. Lean into the discomfort of making a change in your life. Enjoy the journey that you're about to embark on. Embrace the goodness that can come out of being stretched in this season of transition. Thank you guys so much, and can't wait to talk to you guys again on another episode of your Motivational High Five.
Thank you, Candace, and it's so good to hear that you are doing well still after 2 years, and that you took this big first paso, this big first step into a new place to live and choosing to plant yourself in a new way. And from her recording, I just wanted to point out some things she said that really hit home for me. I think one of the things that we all kind of struggle with a little bit, especially post-pandemic, spending a lot of time at home and behind masks and kind of secluded, is embracing unknown spaces. And so her first episode of Transitions was actually kind of during the pandemic, and now post-pandemic, kind of pushing yourself to get back into those unknown spaces. I love how she challenged us to lean into the discomfort of choosing to believe that what's in front of us is enough to make that transition. And I know the next thing that she talked about is true for me as a perfectionist, as someone who wants to wrap his mind around any decision before actually making the decision. She talked about how we sometimes want all the details before making the transition, and that we believe it will give us somehow more peace, when in reality, it often can make us more nervous and make it more difficult to make the decision. I often get stuck in the details, and it just prolongs the whole thing, and I either lose the passion to take the step, or sometimes it's too late. The opportunity is gone. And in not making a decision, you inadvertently make a decision. And she posed the question, what if what we know is actually the best amount of information before making this step? And I think that's true for me. When I look back at anything that was somewhat successful or inspired change to my life in a very positive way, it turns out I didn't have all the information. I sometimes thought I did, but when I would take that step and find out the more information, I'm often glad that I didn't know that, because knowing that may have prevented me from taking the step. And one of those ways for me personally is my wife and I starting this kids' YouTube channel, Kylie Makes It. And there was a lot of stuff that we found out after making that decision, how big of a decision it would be. We didn't really understand, or even some of the details behind it, what that would entail and how long it would be until we saw any sort of measurable success, and how I went into it thinking I would measure success one way and in reality the other way. Had I known all those details in hindsight, would we have started the channel? I really don't know. I don't think that we would have. And so in reality, I'm grateful for not knowing everything. How does that apply to your life? What have you found that has been a good step? And had you known the information you would have found out after taking that step, maybe you wouldn't have done it. Where are you stuck right now in your life? What details are hanging you up? And maybe the thing that's causing some hesitancy won't even become true. And maybe it's not a big deal. And maybe it'll be even better than you could have ever imagined. But you will never know if you stay where you are. And you might find yourself at 70 going, what if I did that? What if? Candace says, in order to take that step, we must allow our fear to sit in the same space as that big step. And she calls that true courage. And I love that. It's not letting fear be bad. It's letting fear be a reality, and actually maybe the thing that could help you take the step. I've found that stepping into the unknown is oftentimes the thing that gives me confidence, because it's the thing that gives me experience and knowledge and wisdom and sets me apart from the people who didn't take the step. And so the people who approach you who want to take the step, who are often confused by all the details and scared by all the details, you now get to offer the thing that you needed, which was experience and wisdom and a reassuring voice to say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Do you need to hear that today? It's going to be okay. Make the transition. The only way to grow is to be stretched and experience some discomfort. And like always, we do that. We find a reflection of ourselves, and we look at ourselves at the end of every episode, and we choose to believe, no matter how uncomfortable it is, we choose to believe a new narrative, a new way of viewing ourselves, and we introduce a new mantra. And we've done this now this is 127th episode. If you've been with me from the beginning, you've been with me since January 2016, and you weathered the 1.5-year hiatus. And I remember some people, and this was more than one person, that contacted me early on in the podcast days, and they said, what I do is I put these mantras on sticky notes, and I put them on my mirror. And so I see them every day as I see myself. This is a good way to practice these things. So when you do that, and you're ready to try something new, to maybe tell yourself a new narrative, to change some connections in your brain thanks to scientific research around neuroplasticity, we see that we can do that. Do this. Find your reflection and say this. I can sit in my discomfort, embrace the unknown, and take the next step. And we're doing that. We're doing that with a new season of the podcast, a new lifespan, a new era. Let's take this step and keep going. Keep going. But don't do it alone. And if you need counseling, you know where to go for that. BetterHelp.com or see a licensed therapist near you. Sometimes you need to be in person. That's okay too. Include people in your journey. You'll find more often than not, people want to know about your transitions. They want to be your support. You might be surprised that people actually want to be in your life, but you'll never know unless you reach out. Step into that transition. Find some confidence and some courage, and bring others along. If not physically, keep in touch. Let them know how you're doing. Let them speak into your life and ask you the hard questions. But ultimately, it comes back to you making those decisions. It starts with you.